Hey, hey, hey.
Setting up for the, what is it?
Job
Art?
review, yeah.
Look at that.
Look at me go, huh? Look
Yeah,
at me go. and all that
you already
stuff.
got it ready and everything. Yeah. They should really have this meeting in the chambers. I guess there's not enough.
There's
seats.
not in, well, the chambers goes like this, and this is, they're one-on-one here.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be able to put them all in the chambers unless they sat in the audience, and that's unfair.
Maybe they could, take turns. Feeling important on the dais.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yes, sir. All right. Accomplished and achieved and 10 minutes. But, Hey, I don't know where anybody sits, I just threw them all out there, so you just park your butt wherever you want and leave your name. You can just park your butt and you can move wherever you want.
Reese's not gonna be here, she's up country.
Yeah,
Oh,
she told me, and I'm not sure about Tiffany either, I could have sworn Tiffany, but she wasn't gonna be here, but. I'm out there anyway.
So how you been?
Good, how about yourself?
Good. To get in contact with Miss Margaret. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Margaret.
For the new appointee,
Oh, I was waiting for an email back from her.
email, Miss
Yes.
Margaret, you never get it.
she's 70 years old.
She has
She
1,000
78.
emails
She
and
sent
never
me
looks
an
at
email.
it.
Look at look.
She
You sent me an email.
did,
Yeah.
that's amazing in itself.
Pretty sure. it was- But she did get an invite for today anyway, so she doesn't check her email, then I better make a note of the call.
She doesn't, calling is the only way you're gonna get her, I know Joe, honestly.
Okay. I can catch her
Other
up.
things together, yeah, yeah.
Um, Does she have a business in town? Cause I know she doesn't live in town.
Mm-mm. She's on different organizations and stuff. And I did get a chance to see the
It worked. Yeah.
It wasn't hot, so my husband had to show me how to move it in, whatever. Anyway, I saw it.
Good, okay.
I'm all caught up. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it took us 3 times to get it to work, or I guess apparently, huh?
Well, what you said to me, the first one I didn't get, it didn't come in, but the second one you did, but I couldn't get it to get hot. I didn't know how to do that. So he had to literally show me. Yeah.
Allegra too, Miss Allegra was, she sent me an email today saying that she couldn't get in, to see the agenda, and I was like, well, that's weird. I just kind of look at her email and I go, well, that's weird, you know?
Then
Well, they
I
had
was
to
able to
be-
do it this, that, but it was just that one thing, I didn't know how to move it, but no issues with today or anything.
Oh,
like that.
good. She's like, I don't know why all of a sudden I can't, I don't know, ma'am. How's your month been?
Pretty good.
Good.
I have my daughter and my granddaughters here visiting me.
Nice. For
So-
Easter?
No,
Oh,
they
just-
came in yesterday. They couldn't get it here, be here for Easter, but they're here for the whole week, so,
Oh, good.
it's just good to be around family.
I understand that.
Yeah, so.
My niece came in yesterday too. She
Mhm.
lives in Tennessee. So Tennessee. She came in yesterday, so it was nice visiting with her.
Mhm.
Hi, did you get my email?
I did, and thank you, I got to look at it, then my computer froze up, I couldn't print anything out, but that's fine.
No, I printed everything for you.
Oh, thank you.
So.
I think my computer's fixing to crash, just why I have a backup laptop ready to go, but anyway,
That Apple TV.
nope. Gateway laptop,
Gateway. They still make those?
yeah, they're good too. They last forever. I got a used one in '05 and it lasted me about 15 years. And then it was still going, but they couldn't add any more memory to it. Woo.
Hi. You can sit wherever you want, I just put them out there.
That's
I don't remember where anybody sits or
Hi.
anything.
I had to do the same thing, but I'm normally on.
So you and Mr. Hill were all easy, so everybody else was kind of
You
weird.
can switch.
No.
We can have some fun, we can switch.
I want to sit by somebody else.
Well, thank you. I love you too. And who else would you pick to sit by that would give you such a good time as I do?
I don't know. No, it depends on whether it's happy hour or not.
Daryl, I wasn't put on this earth to make you happy.
I didn't have an agenda for you.
You just didn't realize you were.
And I don't,
She's
so
like,
for the reputation, I'm not supposed to make you like happy, don't you know that?
Listen, you know, I think you're funny.
I hope so, I try to be,
I think you're funny.
I try to be.
I'm used to you.
I know you are, I'm used to you, that's what I'm
100
doing.
pounds later.
Just the table, a what?
Oh, I was gonna say, my goodness, it's a small one.
It was 98, yes, about pounds more for me.
Not be small, like you said, it's like-
We both were in one point in time.
They look like palm trees.
What was that from Greece?
This is just the table of contents for the city of St. Augustine's charter.
Don't read it.
What'd you say?
Don't read it. I know.
Well, don't.
It's,
It's not required.
it feels like Monday.
Well, isn't it Monday?
No, it's Tuesday.
You're wrong, this is Monday, we're meeting on Monday this week. You didn't get the memo?
It's Tuesday. Oh, it's Wednesday.
We had a nice win in court.
Oh, we did, what did we lose?
We won $46,000.
Whoa, Charlie.
For what?
That's from the county.
Was that from the county?
The stuff they told you that you weren't gonna win.
That's right.
Hot dog, I bet they're mad at us.
Oh, from the county, why was it?
There was a little disagreement on how much our code
Right,
of
right.
liens could be.
Hey,
They said you would have to $5,000.
How are you?
Doing fine.
Well, why was the county involved in it?
The clerk report, they hold the.
Oh,
The
okay.
funds.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, we couldn't find them.
Like everybody on time today.
What's
So
the
that-
lane?
John,
That was, that case has been pending forever and a day. And that was the first time I ever met him in person. He was
John
on me.
McLean? Yeah, he was a friend of mine, real nice fellow, except maybe not when you were against him in court, I don't know. He
So
trained
what's
under
that thing that popped ourselves, why 46?
I know that Joe was trained under this.
That was the amount of
So
the.
the bands, the clowns, and
that I was trying to.
Yeah.
You came here after she was gone, didn't you?
Yeah, I knew it was though. Come on, Freddie. Hurry.
Hey, Tom,
You could take it too, but.
who's that?
Move seats.
Oh, I'm going.
I have no idea what
Yeah.
anybody's.
All you gotta
I
do
just
is-
placed,
And
yeah,
it's switch
you
with you.
can sit wherever you want to sit.
He like being on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, I wasn't gonna sit that close to Norwood either. I had to for a
Oh,
long
blame
time.
you. I really don't blame you.
Listen, that's why he always sat in the corner at commission meetings.
And I said on the opposite board of him, so I was okay.
These close quarters sometimes get in there.
Gives you more companionship, doesn't it?
We got.
Comradeship, fellowship, fun. Shooting and fighting.
We won't be here but an hour today.
An hour
Praise the
good.
Lord.
Do you know what time we have a meeting for the Azalea Brewery?
If I'm ready, if I'm-
Thing?
If I'm driven.
Is it 5:30?
Huh?
Do you know what time?
They probably just not singing the right one that you normally say.
Right there, huh?
I don't know, I just tease and I have no idea.
Downtown Vernon, Scott, our downtown historic district,
Not that I'm aware of anyway.
and I want to go to it, but I don't know what time it is. I think it's no earlier than 5 o'clock, maybe it's 5:30.
That's about that, she might know.
Oh, here, you know what time the Azalea Brewery meeting is this afternoon that was advertised for the National Register information?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember, I don't think it's any earlier than 5, some of the,
I think it's 6.
Yeah.
thank you.
I was just gonna say, but I think it was like 6.
I was gonna go back here and look at my computer, but then it froze up. And so I just shut it down and I didn't throw it out the window though.
Did you
I
save,
didn't wanna break the window.
did you get a chance to save everything to your floppy disk?
Oh, yeah, I got a backup thing that I always, a little backup thing you add to it. Yeah, I got everything saved.
You got the hard plastic ones or the little?
It's a big, I think it's a secret or something, it's a big one like that. And it's got that's what I use when I got the information.
Floppy disk?
No, real to real.
Probably copy it by hand.
Bill type it in B run.
Hey,
Remember you used to put B run in, but you have to put in there.
Or DOS.
When you first started, yeah, all the
DOS.
Microsoft, man, it wasn't even Microsoft.
It's
DOS.
DOS. It's just DOS.
DOS.
I've heard of Dawson. My former and late friend majored in that at Joe's College in 1967, I think, when he majored in computer programming. But I didn't know what it was then, I don't know what it is now.
First.
Hey, I even typed in Morse code.
1984.
I know what that is, I
I
just
know
don't know how to use it.
Let's go ahead and get started.
All right, you're the boss. Don't speak.
Norwich statements.
How many do we need for?
Good.
Seven.
We got 8, so we're gonna, 7. All right, folks, I'm not waiting today.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is our April 22nd, 2025. See our charter review committee meeting. At this time, we're gonna go ahead and let's go ahead and have our roll call
Charles Hill,
here.
Mary Davis, Tom Don,
Present.
Lisa Jackson, Miss Elizabeth
Here.
Hitchens, Mr. James Norwood,
Yes.
Ms. Tiffany Parkers, Ms. Leon Ryan. Am I saying Lee? Oh,
Ryan.
Lee Ryan,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
Ms. Matt Schiller, Ms. Audrey Wise,
Present.
Ms. Amy Shepherd. Am I saying that wrong?
Yeah.
And Margaret Ellington, who is not here.
Margaret Ellington, is she new?
No, she's not here. She's the one of the new ones.
She's an alternate?
Hmm?
Oh, okay. And Tiffany, is she still on?
She's still on. She emailed me and said she was on.
Oh,
For the record, we've got 7 members present. We have a forum. Okay, has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes from the March 24th meeting? The motion to approve, Mr. Norwood, there is a second by Ms. Wise. Is there any discussion, additions, deletions, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to report, gas authority follow-up.
Here, you were just going to do a brief, for the ones that were, after
Oh.
last time.
So we had a few people that were not here last time. I think everybody in the room today was here for the last meeting.
Yes.
So, except,
Ms.
oh,
Wise.
well, Ms. Wise got a follow-up. She can't, just for the record,
Was here.
let the record show that Ms. Wise and Ms. Jackson, they both came in at 6 o'clock. There was a mix-up with the time that the meeting started. The agenda said 6, but the notice said 4. So we noticed them at 6 that they were not here. And so they arrived timely. They got here about 5:59, just as we were letting know.
I'm like, give the notes.
So, so we kind of debriefed them on everything that took place. We went over the gas authorities section in the charter. There were no changes to the section. We had the executive director here as well. We had some significant discussion about some of the aspects of the chart of the gas authority, and how the finances are broken down. And then we basically, moved forward from that standpoint without much more being taken. I think the minutes captured, those pieces of it. And, I don't think anyone had any other questions at that point. Were there any other follow-ups that anybody had as it related to what we did last meeting?
Not what we did last meeting, Chair, but to your presentation to the city commission on the update for the Charter Review Commission, who was watching it online. Thank you. I think it reflected exactly what we've been doing here.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. And I think it was well received, just switching modes a little bit as we follow up on this item. I think it was well received by the commission. They had some questions, a little bit of input as it related to, specifically, city attorneys reporting duties, things of that nature. Some of the stuff is in your packet, as to what some of their recommendations or concerns are, but I think overall, it was just an opportunity for us to be able to show them how much labor and thought has gone into where we are. And the fact that this committee, I think you guys have done an awesome job as it relates to hashing out issues. And now we're at the bread and butter of it, where we're putting pen to paper and then being able to put a product out that comes back. I think one of the things that the commission didn't understand initially was the timeline and the fact that some of the things that we're talking about implementing by way of referendum, we're still a year out before it ever becomes a reality as to where we are. Council assisted me with the presentation. She had a pretty strong PowerPoint, which allowed us to be able to have some depictions of the stuff that was going on. Ms. West, you got anything else?
No, you did a great job. Thank you.
This is the second time that she's not said anything. It's hard, it's a rare find to get a lawyer that ain't talking. I guess. So, but yeah, I was glad to hear their responses to some of the stuff that was there, but it also, I think, was an education piece to be able to put some more information before the commission. So that's where we are. Moving into our next item of business would be our regular business and the city attorney's memo. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. West.
Sure. So, if you take a look at the memo, and this was January of last year, we've gone through pretty much all the sections at this point, except we are now under miscellaneous. And in this memo, I sought to just kind of identify and flag some things that you may want to consider in putting into your charter. And in addition, I have provided each of you with a copy of just the table of contents for the City of St. Augustine Charter. So you can see that some charters are, and you've probably done your own homework and have observed this for yourself in looking at other city charters throughout the state, but some are very brief and perfunctory, like ours. You know, as you know, the bulk of ours pertains to the legal description of our jurisdictional boundaries. But the actual charter itself, there's not a lot there, even though we've spent a lot of time on it. By contrast, if you look at the City of St. Augustine's charter, the table of contents alone is really significant and goes into a lot of detail. I'll defer to the chair on this, but it's been my impression that you've been very judicious in terms of what you think is important enough to rise to the level to put in your charter versus things that can be done by ordinance, which is quite a bit. And I think that's a wise and prudent move. It gives some flexibility to the commission, but it also makes clear what the priorities are in terms of things that you want to make sure are in your charter and not subject to easy change. But along those lines, the first thing is proposing an amendment to the charter that would authorize the formation of a charter review commission that would meet on a regular basis. This is something that the City of St. Augustine Beach does. They meet every 10 years. And that way, not such a long period of time will lapse before someone decides to take this up again. The second one, and these, you might want to consider talking about these two together, is proposing an amendment to the charter that would authorize a citizen initiative process. This is similar to the ability for citizens in the state of Florida to amend the Florida Constitution through a ballot initiative process. If their legislators are not being receptive to what the residents of Florida want, they can propose a ballot initiative, and it has to have 60% of the vote to make it onto the Florida Constitution. But it's a mechanism to get something on the Constitution if your legislators are not being responsive. That's an option that you also may want to consider. So those are two things that you can start to digest, and then we can work our way through this. And this is by no means meant to be a comprehensive list of things to discuss. If there are other things that you have noted in other cities that you think are a good idea that we should perhaps consider, this is the time and the process to go ahead and propose those good ideas. So please don't consider this a comprehensive list.
Has everyone had an opportunity to review the memo and or have any thoughts or comments as it relates to where we are in this memo? Or do you want to kind of take it out piece by piece?
Stopping. That's true.
You look at that piece by piece,
Really, so
one should be a simple, right? I mean, considering it hasn't been done since 1970 or something here.
yeah, I think that's probably about the time that Ms. Kitchen got elected. So, and Norwood was right about that same time. So, but in all reality, what year were you elected?
05.
So you're 25 years in, you never had those, you never had any amendments to the charter,
No, and I read the charter,
other
I had
than
no
just
problem with it.
the change in the residency requirement.
From the residence requirement, I don't know.
And that didn't come at referendum.
But I don't think I think we actually did change, we made an ordinance. We changed the election cycle.
But that was done statewide. And so yeah, I think, I mean, I'm all for 10 years being, at least a 10-year period being, for our charter review committee. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I would think that we would like that for the present commission. to actually select their individuals they want on that committee though.
10 years from now?
But
Yeah,
yeah,
they'll
yeah,
be here
if
10
we're
years
gonna,
from now.
if we're going to do it every 10, if they're gonna do it every 10 years, wouldn't it be prudent to
Well, you're talking about-
allow?
You're talking about the current commission 10 years from now.
Not the current commission as it sits on that.
Well,
during
how
that
do they know
period.
we're gonna be alive 10 years from now?
That's what I'm saying. It should not, they should. I'm not saying that this committee will meet 10 years from now. I'm not saying that we should allow the present commission, not the commission today, the present commission at the time.
Okay, in the
of
future.
Mhm,
Okay, thank you.
of the review to choose. Because, the city of Palatka has a habit of continuing committees. 5 years apart, and 5 years, you didn't know you were on the committee any longer and that kind of thing, so. We don't want to fall into that trap.
Well, you're talking about the future commission 10 years from now, choosing a future committee 10 years. I have no problem with that. Just want to clarify what you were saying.
I just
I
want
was
to make
getting
sure
confused.
we were not
Yeah.
expected to be the 10 years from now.
You be on borrowed time.
Yeah.
So how were we chosen? I know I submitted an application, but was that done by the council or was that done?
The
through
council
clerk's
did it.
office?
I
The
submitted an
council did it?
application also,
Okay.
and they
Okay, so
chose
it'd
five.
be the same
I,
process. is
I
what
think
you're
some
proposing.
were commissioner appointments and then there were some recommendations from
Yeah.
staff as well.
5 commission appointments, some staff recommendation, and Lee and I applied ourselves.
There were some at large.
I could be wrong. I'm not aware of staff recommendations.
No, I don't think they.
No, because
I thought it
this
was
was with
large.
Jonathan Griffith and he asked me, they couldn't find people, so.
Oh, maybe
I
There were
wanted to
13
be on
applicants, so we have to-
I wanted to be on the library board, instead I ended up here, so.
We're glad you're here.
I'm glad you know the last
We're glad you're here. It's a lot more action in the library.
A lot of faces on the library board, so.
Now, if you're in Alachua County, it'd be a different library.
And we're a committee, not a board, so you can still be on the library board.
Yeah.
But I think,
Couple
I
of-
think I think there were, each commissioner got 2 people that they nominated. And then there were some other applications that were in place.
Yeah,
So-
it wasn't the most intuitive process, but I think that was the intent.
Well, at the end of the day, they did well.
Right.
With the committee they put together, you guys have been great.
We put in language that we let them decide in 10 years how they want to.
Right, and I think that was I think that was the thought process anyway, going into it, not to have a standing committee, but that's gonna be, I think that's easy.
You know, let them choose it in 10 years, we won't have to worry about it. Hopefully.
No more than a 2-year term probably, so that they don't get stuck there forever.
Wouldn't, at the beginning of this, didn't Jamie Watts say they were in their 3rd or 4th year?
I'm not quoting Jamie Watts.
Oh, that's who spoke to us about how to do a charter review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
How long have you guys been together? Doesn't it take
It
like
was set
2
up
or
as
3 years?
2 years.
it's been a year here.
So then you have another
almost.
year, so.
Yeah,
2 years.
We figured 2 years,
So
so
this-
that's not
Because
bad.
it'll be another year before you
Yeah, this,
actually get it out.
yeah, this memo is January of 24.
Yeah, so we're good.
So that's a pretty easy one for us.
So, quick
go ahead.
question. I'll read the language from the city of St. Augustine Beaches on this particular issue, see if you want to make any changes. It reads, the charter may be amended as provided by general law, commencing with the first regular meeting following September 1st, 2013, and every 10 years thereafter. The city commission shall appoint a special committee of 7 qualified electors to the city to review the city charter and make recommendations to the city commission as to the amendments hereto. Nothing herein is intended to preclude the city commission from proposing amendments to this charter at other times, or to preclude the city commission from appointing such a special committee at earlier intervals. Do you want to stick with that language, notably the 7, or do you want it broader, larger, like this committee?
I want it broader. We've got a committee of 12 with 1 alternate, and I think, speaking for myself and not speaking for you folks, but observing you folks, I think we've done a darn good job. And I think we need more than 7. That would mean the commission would have 5 of them and one would be a fly by night, so to speak. We need more. I think we've done a good job.
Yeah, just do 10 and alternate. I think that gives the commissioner 2 appointments. Everybody okay with that?
I think for-
10 and alternate. That gives 2 appointments per commissioner. We probably want to spell that out.
And without the language, nothing herein is intended to preclude the city commission from proposing amendments. Do you want the city commission to also have the ability to propose their own amendments to the charter?
What do they do now under our charter? I can't remember.
There's no historical basis to,
Then I wouldn't go with St. Augustine's. I'd leave it.
Well, they still have the ability to do so now, even because because it's silent as to what's in place.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't keep because quite honestly, all thing we're doing is making recommendations to the commission, and then they're gonna make their own decision anyway. So I don't think one stops the other. So
So
that's,
leave it as it is.
well, we can have this,
We just-
we have more discussion, because what's happening is we're literally a recommending board. And then the commission's gonna vote up or down which pieces of what we provide in our summary that they want to bring forward anyway. So they have the ultimate say so as it relates to everything in place.
So right now, if the commission wanted to make changes to the charter, would that have to go through referendum as well?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. And the only thing that I haven't seen that didn't go through referendum that was changed in the charter, and I still don't know how it happened, was residency.
Is that what you said? Went by
Residency is done by ordinance.
I was on the commission and I don't know how it got changed. I know
Was
one
it?
time it was one thing and then the next thing it was something else. I'm going, when did this happen?
It changed twice and it wasn't a referendum ever.
So in this current language doesn't change that ability for the commissioners.
It doesn't. So go into Article 1. This one is going to remember. That's all, just language abolishing previous charters. That's all. That's all customary language. I don't really think we want to go through all of that.
No.
No, I was on, Article 5.
Citizen initiative, let's go through that piece next. Do we want to allow citizen initiatives to have an opportunity?
I don't think that's necessary. And I've read the discussion about the state. I think the state's about to get rid of that or make it more difficult. I don't see where that's. If I, as a citizen, think the charter needs to be amended, I'm gonna go to my city commission and talk to them about it. I don't see.
Well,
And if I do get a petition taken to the city commission, then the city commission still has to agree whether or not they're gonna do it, then it still has to do a referendum. So to me, it's just a waste of time.
Well, no, well, actually, if you do a citizen initiative, then you're just required to have a certain, you have to require to have a certain number of signatures in order to get it on the ballot.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I think that's a good thing, though.
And
Within the election.
yeah, you'll have time limits and all those things.
So and you have to get 10% of the registered voters, which would be, we have about 7,000 in the city of Blackness. You'd have to have 700 signatures on the petition. Okay.
General idea is that it's a check and balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Through the chair, I think that is a good check and balance. We should. Yeah. It's here.
That's what I look at. You heard of that, well.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
Do we need to do an motion for one, this as well, or just, or for each individual numbered item?
Let's,
Did we do one by consensus or do we need a motion?
let's just do it by one. I think we're fine. Let's just get a motion for the citizen initiative for now.
Through the chair, I would like to make a motion that we leave the language in place that would give the citizens an opportunity to exercise their right to, the change within a local government. I would like to be this.
The language doesn't exist right now.
Yes, technically.
But this is what I'm saying, this
So-
language should be added.
So I'll take that as a motion to adopt the language. All right, there's a motion on the floor and a second to adopt language for citizen initiative. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like
Nay.
sign. One nay. Motion carries. Financial impact statement and inclusion of a financial impact statement on the ballot. On the ballot would allow for voters to consider the estimated increase or decrease in any revenues cost to the local governments resulting from the proposed amendment. Any thoughts on that?
And that proposed amendment, that refers to number 2?
Any,
Any,
Any.
any proposed amendment to the charter?
I think that would be a good thing.
Just for context, the legislature passed a couple of years ago, the requirement is that for every ordinance that we pass, we have to do a business impact statement, show how it may negatively affect businesses. So this is in keeping with that. If you're going to require it for an ordinance, should you require it for a charter amendment?
It sounds like you need to, if you have to have it for the ordinance, you have to have it.
It is not legally required.
It's
for
not legally
charter
required,
amendments.
but for the ordinance, you have to have it for a business, an impact to business, but not an impact to residential.
Yeah,
Well, that's discriminatory, but anyway.
Subjective anyway, that don't matter.
it is.
It's all subjective.
I'm not a huge fan from an administrative standpoint.
I wouldn't, I think it's just a bunch of extra work, but whatever the committee wants, they'll go with, so.
I'll listen to commentary on it at this point. Any other commentary?
Doesn't the supervisor elections already include that on the ballots? For certain things?
First, not for all, I don't think.
And this will just wrap up the whole, and include this parts, at least that pertain to the state of Palatka.
not necessarily just for voting.
Yeah, because
This
even
would
with,
be for off election construction projects.
Because
That
it
will impact the city.
yeah, in most cases, you don't see, like, even with some of the property tax stuff, you're limited on what you get as far as what the impacts are. And it's gonna be subjective based upon who's doing the math.
So basically, it's useless.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but only because it depends on how easily you can calculate what the impacts are.
And whether or not it's
Versus,
the truth,
that's what everything, right?
exactly, so it's
So-
useless.
So there's the commentary, I think that's there is, what is it, what the basis is. So it's a pleasure of the committee. Tomato, tomato. It's right. Have you talking over there? What's your thought?
I like to listen to y'all and then normally somebody says what I'm thinking, or if they don't, then I speak up. I don't see it as being pertinent. My opinion. Because again, having worked in government before, it all depends on who's preparing the numbers and calculations and. Yeah.
Interpretation. Sure. Do we know if any other city or municipality has adopted this type of language in their charter? By chance?
I have not researched that.
I'll pick silence as standing still at this moment.
Yeah. I still think though that wouldn't it be good to include that so you have a little more transparency?
It's only transparent if you know it's the truth. And they can finagle the figures and you don't know that's exactly what it is.
Well, you
And a
shouldn't.
financial statement for every, I mean,
Yeah, but that's with everything. That's with everything.
well, that's true, and I think it's a useless waste of time.
See, a lot of times it says, well, the city doesn't have money for this, or the city doesn't have money for that. And then, someone gets a huge salary and a lot of people are questioning, how is that possible? Where's that money coming from? I think the more you can show what you do with the money, the better it is as a city.
Well, that's true from the standpoint of a budget. You're absolutely correct. This is talking about the financial impact of the charter amendment. And the charter amendment doesn't necessarily affect the salary, so you still would
No,
find out what you're
just-
talking about.
It's an example, I mean,
And how many voters actually read the ballot before they vote? I don't know of any of them, except maybe me, and I rarely do.
Mr. Dolich.
Can we just get an example of what kind of amendment would require
A financial impact.
impacts?
So look at, let's just say we had an amendment that did away with property tax, and that's a pretty common, since that's a
Yeah.
topic of discussion this session. So if you had an amendment that did away with property tax, then you could have something that says, as a result of this amendment passing, if they had a citizen initiative to say, let's do away with ad valorem taxes. Then as a result of this amendment passing, you can show that this city will lose X amount of dollars in the general fund as a result of not collecting any ad valorem taxes at the current millage rate.
but that's crucial then, I mean, to show that, I think.
But on the flip side, it would also need to show exactly how much non-tax money that's going to be put on you that you can't get out of. The city, all government has to have tax money. You get rid of tax money, everybody's saying kumbaya and hold hands. Then you're gonna get fees which have no cap on them, and then you have no recourse.
We're not arguing, but we're not.
No, but I mean, you're talking about transparency, it needs to say both things.
But the example, I don't think the example was meant for us to debate the validity of the issue. It was more so for it to be able to show something that may have a monetary impact that you can calculate freely. Yes, sir.
So is this, as it's presented in the memo, is it only referring to impact relating to the budget for the city?
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion about it. Go ahead. I'd like to motion to adopt the verbiage as it sits in the memo.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, there were now discussion on the motion, any discussion at this time? Steve, go ahead.
Through the chair, I concur that the ability to see whether our impact here is to give the citizens the opportunity to see negative, positive, whatever you want to say, the opportunity to have a voice or to see. And I think it would behoove us, whether it's exercised or not, put in language that can give them the opportunity to know how the funding or the monies or the financials is there, whether they read it or not. The opportunity to have it before me to partake of is an opportunity that we're giving the citizens. And I think that's a positive. So that's my 2 cents.
Any further discussion?
I just believe that you should understand the financial impact,
Yeah.
you know, and just because, and everything that will probably be recommended to go to a referendum may not have a financial impact, but we need to know that as well.
But I think the challenge is because it's a citizen referendum, so the citizenry says, we want to do this. We're relying on the city to provide the data, right, to either support or negate that, not knowing how the city or the representatives of the city that are capturing that data, whether they support it or not. There can always be you see what I'm saying, like
A foot on the scale.
yes.
But there's an opportunity for a Q&A, you know, because when you present that as well, it gives citizens an opportunity to ask those questions. How did you derive at those numbers and that kind of thing as well?
It's just a challenge. Well, I mean, it's supposed to like.
Should go.
So to take the tax relief off the table, because that's not something local municipalities can do.
Right.
Right? So putting in a giant water slide on Riverfront Park,
Mhm.
citizen initiative, 10%, I got 800 signatures.
Mhm.
What's the financial impact? That's what we're talking about?
Mhm.
Understood. Thank you.
Or building 10 schools,
Hmm?
or building 10 schools.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, wouldn't that be county?
Yeah, you just.
Yeah, but I'm
Just
just,
as
as
an
an example. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Not as
So-
challenge.
Any additional discussion on this?
Question.
Questions called?
Just to be clear, so that financial
I-
impact
I-
statement will be then included, right?
That's what the motion's for.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That's the
right.
motion.
Okay, good.
So questions called, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. I agree with you. So passes by majority vote, 2 nays. Okay. Allow for city-owned parks, waterfront property, or downtown property to only occur via referendum. Well, there's, the first part is the waterfront park's not gonna be sold because it has a reverter on it. So I don't see it passing, being sold by referendum at all.
I might add,
So,
there is a reverter clause on the downtown riverfront, but it's only where the old jail used to be, from where the extension of St. John's Avenue to the bridge. It doesn't go all the way down to the boathouse marinas. It's only a portion of it. I would think this is a good idea because the city owns parks and city owned property. We own that property. The city is us. The citizens who live in the city of Palatka pay taxes in the city of Palatka. So I think we very well should have a say on what they do with our public owned parks. So I think this would be a very good thing.
Any other comments? As this includes parks, waterfront property, or downtown property, no other property.
just help me understand the reverter clause.
Huh?
Can you help me understand the reverter?
So like on the piece of property that where the jail was, that the city received, that was donated to the city. If the city, no, in that deed, it says basically the city no longer uses that as a park. That, know where the parking lot is right next to the bridge, that little piece and all of that was the county jail at one point.
Like where the amphitheater?
Yeah, we had the jail with the best view in America. And so, if the city no longer, if the city ceases to use that property as a park, it reverts back to the donor's family,
It reverts back to Putnam County.
right?
So, yeah.
Which family?
It actually came from it was a donor, I think it was his family. that
Yeah,
had
there's
it.
two things on there. One of them was the Ronnie Clark family for an easement along the riverfront, and then the other was for the actual jail property, which goes back to Putnam County.
Right, so those.
Two reverter clauses.
So the reverter just basically says that once you no longer use that property for the intended purpose of the donation, then the
Mhm.
property goes back to the original owner.
So let me ask you something about that switch that happened not that long ago, right? The switch for this.
It's not on the agenda.
No, but I have a question about that.
Go ahead.
So that piece of property on the Reed Street where the gas.
Oh, you might have
company-
Oh,
Yeah, the swap,
swap,
okay, okay.
Yeah, the swap, switch, is that not a good word? Well,
So-
anyway,
so-
would that then, if we would vote on this, would that have?
That would have to go through a referendum.
Right.
It
I
wouldn't
think
just
that's
happen.
important. Right, right.
But then we need to specify, that was not a sale, period, in any way of the definition.
know,
So you
I
need to
know.
Specify if they get rid of
But
the
we
city
didn't have
property,
any say in it.
but you need to specify then if they get rid of city property,
Anytime there's exchange of money, it's a sale.
even if it's even money.
It wasn't
Well, the value,
It absolutely was a sale.
barter and exchange, kind of like the Indians, but there was an exchange of the property, there was a,
then what we need to say, and I'm not opposed to this, we need to say, allow for the sale or other dispersion, how do you say it?
Disposition.
Disposition of city property. Because you can argue whether it was a sale, you can go to court and have a judge decide that. I can argue both sides, however, but I think we need to specify, so in the future, if the city decides to swap something with somebody, then.
We should have a say in
That's
it.
what I'm saying, let's word it
Yeah.
to where we know we have a say in it.
Right.
yes, ma'am.
This only states parks, waterfront property in downtown. Why can it not say for any property that's owned by?
It can, but I think one of the issues you're gonna have is now you're gonna keep the city from doing
Business.
normal business without having to go through a referendum process, which is gonna take sometimes maybe over a year.
Okay, I wanted to know the significance of excluding it, that's why.
Sure.
Based on what our.
Just so you know, that the city owns approximately 200 pieces of property. Some of them are really small, like rights of way and easements. And so we also have vacant property that we have for sale for affordable housing. If we had to go through a referendum for each of those transactions, it would really be cumbersome.
Okay.
Going back to the reverter, I just want to flag this. Because this was one of the issues that came up, early when I started, was there was a push, for Ravine Garden State Park, the 81 acres that's along the water. There's a reverter clause there as well, that it comes back to the city if it's not being used for park recreational purposes. There was a push for the city to exercise that reverter clause because there were development interests in that 81 acres. So that never really goes away with waterfront property. So that's something you may want to take into consideration as you work this.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would add to what Audrey said, and she's on the right track. I would specify for the sale of city-owned downtown or airport property. Because the airport is, again, that's like the city hall, it's city-owned property, it's citizen-owned property. The parcels that the city attorney was referring to, a lot of those were gotten through foreclosures or maybe somebody deeded to the city. They're little teeny tracts that don't mean anything to anybody.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So I think probably if we say for the sale or dispersion of city-owned property, city-owned parks, waterfront property, or downtown property, or airport property, to only occur via referendum, because we also had a swap in the
Yeah,
airport, which nobody got in a snit over.
Right.
So, it's the same thing.
The desirable.
Yeah, we swapped the property at the airport, nobody said a word. We swapped it downtown, discussion. So I think we need to add the airport in there also. Segue off what Audrey said.
Any other comments, concerns as it relates?
And this specific list came from the commissioner meeting, or this was something that you're recommending, council?
This was something that I saw in the Lake Worth charter. I will say that the language in the Lake Worth charter does, call also for a lease less than 20 years. And the commission shall pass a resolution calling for a referendum election, or shall place the matter on the next scheduled ballot, provided the next ballot date is less than 1 year. So that provides an opportunity for it to happen in a more timely fashion versus waiting until November 2026, for example. But these were issues that, again, these were kind of a brainstorming things for this committee to consider.
Any other comments?
I like what the city attorney said about the lease for 20 years, because our current, at the city dock, that property is leased basically on a couple of years by couple of years, and the citizens had no input on it. So I think based on that alone, with the city leasing property, it may be something that the citizens might want to also maybe have some input on or have that added to it.
Well, I'll say this, I think that this becomes a bit cumbersome in operation of city business. Although I wholeheartedly have not been a fan of the way in which acquisition or disposition of property has taken place in the last couple of years. I do believe that Florida statutes sets out the standards by which you have to follow and the process by which you follow to get rid of excess property, to dispose of city-owned property as well. And I understand the spirit of this, considering all the stuff, for lack of any other term, that has transpired and a lot of the conspiracy theory stuff that's out there. And questionable decisions that have been put in place, but I don't necessarily, I think this may be a bit too restrictive when it comes to the opportunity for the city to conduct business and do certain things. I think more than anything, we probably all need to be more vocal when we have objections or concerns as it relates to disposition or acquisition of property by our municipal government. But I don't necessarily think referendum, I just think the timeline for how long it takes to get a referendum passed, or even educating our people, and I think Putnam County's probably taken it on the chin as a whole over the last couple of years as it relates to, whether it's schools or jails or public works facilities or whatever it may be. Overall, we've had some questionable pieces to the puzzle that have been in all entities, all governmental entities. But I don't necessarily know if the charter referendum process is the most expedient process that's going to give us the most efficiency. It'll give us some control,
Yeah.
definitely, but I don't know if it'll give us the ability to do what we need to do, because, I mean, it all sounds great until until the majority of the people vote something down that could change the city. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the part that I worry about.
Well, shouldn't it change it then if the majority wants it? I mean,
Yes,
I think
we
so.
are the
Democratic,
city.
Democratic, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus, can you not speed up this referendum business, you know?
but you don't speed it up. It ain't like driving a car. It ain't an ordinance. It's, you know, the referendum process is what it is, and you've got strict deadlines that you have to meet in order to get things on the ballot, and you got costs associated with getting them on the ballot.
Yeah, but I think for really important pieces of property like the riverfront, we should have a say in it.
I can tell you, going a year down the line on the sale of a piece of property, most people who really want it are gonna probably go somewhere else to get it. So that's where you are. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman, that's the whole point. We don't want our city property, our city parks, our public spaces gotten rid of. And if the citizens overwhelmingly vote to let it get rid of, then fine, but I think that's the whole point of this. Unless this violates or goes against the state statute, and I know that city ordinance by and large cannot go against the state statute, then I think this is a good thing. Only on the city, like the parks, the waterfront property, that is a city park, downtown property, that's like City Hall, and then, of course, adding the airport. That is public property that belongs to the citizens. Our tax money bought it, our tax money maintains it. We certainly should have a say on whether or not the city sells it to anybody and who they sell it to. So I think this is vital, again, unless it conflicts with the state. If the state statute says we can't do it, then Lake Worth must be messed up because it comes out of their charter. So I think we need to go for it.
Yeah, I think that too, I agree.
Who's we?
The committee, if they agree, that's who we is.
Mr. Dolan.
Sure, I'd like to table this until maybe we can look at the copy of the Lake Worth Charter and get a little more information.
Okay.
Any concerns? We'll take that as a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Got 15 more minutes. Define the duties of the city clerk.
Yeah, we can do it.
Ms. Hayes, you wanna take this?
That'll put on the
I'm
spot.
still trying to figure it out.
It isn't defined in our charter. I can't remember, so sorry, folks.
Yes, I'm still trying to figure it out myself, so. Y'all have at it.
I'll take this one. So, the clerk's duties are defined and the clerk's duties continuously change based upon who's in leadership. And that's, so, kind of put it in perspective. When Alan Bush was city manager, the clerk was his executive assistant. When Terry Suggs was city manager, or when Mike Zimbor was here, the clerk was not their executive assistant. Their executive assistant was the person who, in essence, was the assistant clerk at that time. And then Zimbor actually had, I think Jonathan started out as his executive assistant by title, and he was not the assistant clerk. When Terry Sykes was here, you had the assistant clerk who was actually over record keeping, who was the executive assistant. So now, and so depending on who's in place, what their belief is, that's where you are. The closest thing to a description of the job duties for the clerk in totality came during when we did the salary survey and they started pushing out different pieces to the puzzle, but it's not a clear adoption. And you would think that having a charter officer in place, that there would be more description there. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it is set forth in the charter that the clerk is one of the few positions that can be terminated by the city manager only with the majority vote of the city commission. So that elevates it a little bit in terms of its stature. It is defined in a lot of the other charters that I have reviewed. For whatever it's worth, I personally do think some clarity on the role would be helpful. You do have clerk school, that there are certificates. Karen can probably speak a lot more eloquently on what she has to go through to become a certified clerk. But having that line blurred on executive assistant, I think is probably not the best use of resources. However, if our budget goes down, I can see acting in a pinch. But I think the lack of clarity has not served us particularly well.
Mr. Chairman, could we perhaps table this like we did the previous one and get some charter quotes from other cities as to how they define the duty of the city clerk, so that we can see what their definitions are and maybe work from that?
And I'm gonna lean on you a little bit on this one.
Oh, yeah, no problem. What do you need?
Help.
And if that's your motion.
That's my, I make that a motion
To table?
to table it and get the wording from other city charters as to the duties and obligations of their city clerks. And then maybe from that, we can come up with something that's workable for us.
This motion on the floor is a second. Any further discussion?
Under discussion. I know that you were a city clerk in, Crescent City, right? What's the difference in the duties between now that you have now and you did in Crescent City?
In Crescent City, the employees are only 24. So, but so it's a smaller city,
Right.
so the clerk took on a lot more hats than it does here. However, here, the hats that I wear here are a lot stronger than they are in Crescent City. So like I wore a hat, like, I did code enforcement, I did, planning and zoning, you know, I wore those hats with the special magistrate, all that. I wore all those hats for historic preservation. As I do here, however, I don't do planning and zoning and, all of that. So it's a little bit different, but the qualifications should still be the same all the way through the state of Florida.
Right. I guess my reason for asking that question, I wanted us to understand that the dynamics are going to be different for each city.
Mhm.
You know, we can look at the charters, we can look at what's, you know, how they actually define the responsibilities and all of the clerk, but depending upon where you at.
That's why I made my motion saying, then we can tweak it to fit our situation, because we're not other cities and we never want to be, but we can work it into what we need.
Yes, ma'am.
Regardless of what we come back with, the qualifications to be a city clerk should be
It's
high
awesome.
on that list. And then work out the duties. And I do understand the different administrations, and I can understand the confusion with it. But I feel as though if the top qualifications of how you have to be certified, all those things have to be in place. And then tweak it to the degree that needs to be. I get that.
There's three certifications right now to be a city clerk, 3 different certifications.
Wow.
So when you think about it, it does take time. So when you're like, you have to go through the stages, but you have to be in a job for
To
3
get to those
years to get
stages.
your first one, and then the next 2 actually come in place.
This is state statute.
So I also think that we have to be careful because some of this is HR.
Exactly.
And so, and the other thing we have to understand is that the roles of the clerk are different in different places. Because, and just going back to using the Crescent City Palatka analysis, I do a lot of work in Hawthorne as well. And they got 7 employees. Clerks in most small communities either operate as additional executives, administrators, or they operate as glorified secretaries. And it's depending on what level of leadership you got where. And when you get into a place like, and it's interesting, when you get to a place like Palatka, where you got 140 employees, it takes on, there are different roles and responsibilities. And the one thing that we were trying to do here was to make the clerk's department not be a 1-person department, because there's so many things you have to do, because one person can't do it all. Now you got an assistant, but because you don't have defined roles, you have an assistant who's limited in capacities. And so you got a charter officer who doesn't have the same controls as other charter officers when it comes to departments. So and just so we all know, your charter officers are your chief of police, your fire chief, your city attorney, your clerk, and they have different levels of control in each piece. And I think that's what happens. So if you look back at this thing, when this charter was written, I'm sure the clerk's roles were far different than they are today, and it was probably more of an administrative assistant type role where that person was just basically keeping records. And now you've got the clerk's position has elevated into a much more distinctive position, which takes on so many other responsibilities because of reporting requirements, because of all these other things. And so that's the thing I think we have to be careful of, because when we get into, putting in the qualifications into the charter, what happens when the qualifications change by statute? You gotta go back and change it again. But those are things that I think we just have to be more conscious of. But I agree that, we may need to look at the universal examples of what the general duties of the clerk are. But you're still gonna be able to adopt the others by job description. And you wanna make sure that whatever you do, you got a tie-in that says that you can do that as well.
So, through the chair, my question to you, should we be getting information from HR also regarding,
The job description,
yeah,
we can get that. I mean, we
yeah,
can,
so we could get all that too?
we can just have
for the next
staff,
meeting?
we can have staff provide that to us by
Okay.
email.
Okay.
So that as we start to get the other information brought in, and let's get about 5 examples of what the clerk's role is in the charter.
Yeah, that Crescent City, just in 2024, just changed the charter. To 24, 22. It might have been 22, but they had changed the role of the clerk because the clerk was just an administrative assistant. And so they had to change because the city manager was not a city manager. He was actually the city clerk. So they changed it, they had to change it to say city manager, city clerk, so that the titles weren't.
Does the Florida statute set any requirements for a city manager in general? Like if real estate agents are controlled by the Florida statutes as to what qualifications they have to have? Does Florida statutes control the general qualifications of a city clerk? Maybe we can get that when we discuss it or another meeting.
That's my piece for discussion. Any more discussion on this piece?
Call the
Okay.
question.
Questions, call, all in favor, say aye at the table.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carries unanimously. This is a good stopping point for us here.
I agree.
Make a note that we stopped at item 5. Next meeting. We seem to be doing the late. Our numbers on the meetings, just because I think schedules are getting a
We
little
got seven,
hectic.
so I think we're
Because
good.
drops on it. Drops on it. Because it's a hectic time of the year with graduation, all the other stuff going on, activities with kids. So what do you guys want to come back for our next meeting?
And we're gonna finish this up?
The hope is that we finish up
Well,
faster
not
than
that.
later. Oh, drag it out.
Yeah.
I don't want to drag it out. I don't know if from a time frame.
I'm good with next month
any
if everybody else
suggestions?
is.
You guys want to try and do another meeting in a few weeks, or you want to wait until
I would wait
30 days?
I would say
or
30
so?
days next month. I have no problem with next month, 30 days, so around the 20th.
That's 1 for 30. Let's get to see about the other 6.
I'm available.
You don't have a job.
Oh, I don't need to.
Don't be nasty.
You gotta be careful because I don't know what's on the calendar.
Exactly.
I really enjoyed the doodle. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
seems to
You can sit
have worked well for us thus far. I mean, nothing against picking the date specifically on record right now, but
I just want to pick that range of time. So, because I know some people some people may have kids who are getting ready for graduation, or they got to go to college graduation or whatever it may be, and it's the end of the school year coming up. So I don't want to be mindful of those things as well. So I just want to understand, as we start pushing the doodle out, are we looking at do we want to look at early May, late May, or middle of May?
Early May is Mother's Day.
I would say middle around the 20th. That's perfect. It's before graduation. It's after other stuff.
Daughter's graduation, May 19th.
Well, then it'll be over on the 20th.
You're gonna go early.
It's United States or no?
Yes, I think.
So let's,
The early
Like
part
middle of
of
the
the
month,
day.
beginning of college graduation,
before, what are you pulling, when you leaving to go?
probably around the 14th, 15th.
So everybody good to try to do something before
I
then?
would say the 13th.
Before then,
Before the?
Or after.
The 13th.
Well, before the, so let's look at, when you shoot your doodle out this time,
The
let's
13th.
look at before the 14th and after the
Okay,
20th,
okay.
right? You'll be back after 20th?
when will you be back, Tom?
I don't know, I gotta check.
He's gonna, he'll go up north, cause it's cool, it's gonna be warm now. Be better weather in Florida.
I don't know. I'll
Okay.
let you know.
Anybody else have a scheduling conflict?
So just don't forget historic preservation board, planning board, city
Graduation,
commission, and
like-
CRA,
I know, that's what I was. looking
all the
at.
city meetings, as well as Blue Crab and
Yeah,
I'm
first week of May is gonna be bad for,
Yeah.
it's real bad for meetings, yeah.
for the end of that first week.
When is the Memorial Day weekend?
End of the month.
27th,
Oh.
right? Weekend of 27th.
Memorial Day's the 26th this year.
So it's early, yeah,
23rd,
it's
24th,
early,
25th.
it's
Yeah.
early to me, but.
And please not the week for me for Mother's Day week because my son is coming.
And Mother's Day is the 11th.
So you're actually looking at the dates between the 14th and the 20th, right?
No, because he can't make these without
We're gonna-
state.
What's
He-
Before
all
the
his Zoom might
14th,
be
before the,
available.
we're gonna block off it,
Before the 14th.
we're gonna block off those things.
What about the second week in June? What's wrong with that?
Let's,
Let's push it out a couple of weeks, and so what?
Meet before then.
yeah,
What's
let's,
the first week in May?
How about the 27th of May? Because
Because
that's where you're
historic
looking at
preservation
right
board
there.
meeting, you know. and-
let's push out a doodle with that first range, which is the early part of the month,
Like the 13th.
and then the end of the month. And then let's see what we come up with.
Okay.
All right,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So why, just a question, why was it this short meeting today? Why
why not?
not finish this?